how I put the actual shoe together. It's all made out of chipboard. And I do have a pattern that will be available in the description box below for you to use to make your own. I also wanted to tell you that parts of this shoe were not my original idea. So I will put the link to the lady that inspired me to try one of these. It was, I think it was for a paper shoe or something like that, but I will put the link below so that you can also see that. So what I've done is taken the paper pattern and cut out pieces of chipboard for the patterns. Now, what I've done here, as you can see, is I've drawn little snip lines, excuse me, that you'll just snip and that'll ease. This is the heel of the shoe, or the back of the shoe. Ease it around this piece, the actual sole of the shoe. Now on all of these pattern pieces, you'll see that I put dotted lines, and these are all score lines. This piece is the top of the shoe, and you can see I've added score lines. And the reason that I made this so much bigger is because I actually fold this just gently so that it gives that curved look on the top of the shoe, like right here on this area. This is where that piece that I just showed you goes. It goes right here. And then the heel is a separate piece, which I've cut out. And also on the lines, I've scored this. Now, if you don't have a score pad to score these with, you can use a butter knife or something of that nature to just get your score lines done so that it's easier for you to shape these as you go along. Now, this particular piece for the heel, it just goes like this. Now, when I did my original one, I wasn't thinking about using, covering it in fabric before I did this. So I did cut out a piece of fabric, and I used, this is, all the fabric that I'm using is just pieces of a wedding gown that I just cut up so that it has that, satin appearance. So let's get started with putting the shoe together. To do this, all you're going to need is your pattern. This is a medium weight chipboard. You could also use cardboard for that purpose. Anything really that's kind of, sturdy. A pair of scissors and your glue gun. So let's get started with this part. Now, as you can see on here, there are dotted lines, and the reason for those is this is where your heel is going to go. So you want to bend that part down and this part up. So you can see that gives you the area to put your heel on right there. So the first thing we're going to do is the back part of the shoe here. So I have scored this, and I'm just going to gently bend this around along on the score lines. You'll have to excuse the background noise. My husband is working on the house, and he's a bit noisy. So I'll try to talk loud enough to compensate for that noise. So we're just going to snip along all of these. And this snipping is just like if you're a sewer, you just snip on the straight lines to ease the fullness onto the piece that the straight pieces that you're working on. And since this is a straight piece and this is a curved piece, we need to snip this so that it fits around the shoe. And I've tried to do as much pre-preparation as I could, so this wouldn't be like a 2-hour long video while you watched me cut out pieces and so on. I don't know how long it's going to be, but we're going to be here through the duration, so just bear with me until we get to the fun part, which is the decorating part. Okay, so now we have all of those little snips done, and what we're going to do is just gently start to curve this back part of the shoe just a little bit, just very gently. And that's just to help soften up the chipboard a little bit and give it that curve that we need. It just makes it easier when you're trying to glue this onto the piece. And all of these pieces, especially this piece, we're going to be doing the same process with. So, okay, let's start by gluing this together. Now, I like to try and, kind of eyeball the center of where I think the back of the shoes should go. And what I like to do is try and line it up with that, oops, I'm out of frame, with this score line right here on the back of the shoe. So if it's a little bit too long, which I can see this one is probably going to be, you can just snip that piece off right there. So let's start gluing. And this is a little bit fussy, this part, and the top of the shoe are a little bit fussy, but you just take your time and go slow as you're gluing it. So I'm just going to just start adding glue a little bit at a time. And as I'm adding the glue, I'm going to keep checking on the other side to make sure that I have this score line where it needs to be on the shoe. So we'll just add, I'm just going to do like 2 or 3 at a time. It just makes easing it on there a little bit easier. And if you get some excess glue on there, it's not a problem because we're going to be covering the whole thing up with fabrics and just appliques and all kinds of yumminess. So once this is done, you're not going to see any of this unfinished bit here. But this is the part that you just kind of have to fuss with and take your time with because it is cardboard and it's not used to bending. So from here, it gets, once you get around that heel part, it gets a little bit easier to glue. So I'm just going to attach that there. And if you see little tabs, the little tabs that you snipped are coming loose, just add a little bit more glue. The bottom of this is going to be covered as well, so you won't see anything that we're working on. Now, when I did mine, after I got all this assembled, I put a coat of gesso over top of it, but you don't need to do that. That was just kind of an extra step. I wasn't sure when I was doing it because that was my first one. I wasn't sure when I was doing it whether this cardboard would show or not. So just to err on the side of caution, I just added a coat of gesso. Now you can do that or not. It's entirely up to you. So, and now I can see right here that this is going to be a little bit too long. So I'm going to cut this piece off right here. Just like that. And finish gluing this on here. So there you have it. That's what it looks like on the back side. And like I said, if you see any of these that are lifting up just a little bit, just add a dab of glue just to keep that down. Again, you won't see this when we're done. So all I want to do is make sure that it stays so it doesn't come loose while we're working on the fabric part of it. Okay, so there you have your shoe and the back part of the shoe. Now, the next part is a little bit fussier, but still, it's not too terribly bad. At least this was the fussy part for me. So again, this is the top of your shoe right here. Now what I did is I scored along this line, just like I did with on the other pieces. And I'm going to, again, snip along here to ease in that fullness. But before I do that, I want to start kind of shaping the top of the shoe a little bit. And you just want to use gentle movements just to give it that shape. And this you can take as much time as you want to with this. And this is the part that comes right here, this part here. And I did not flip this up, but you could on this tongue, flip it up a little bit more. And I'll probably end up cutting this down a little bit. I left it longer so that it could be shaped however, you want it to be shaped. So I'm just going to continue to kind of shape this just roughly, because we want that, curved as much as we can get. Okay, now we're going to do the same thing that we did on this part. You can see now it's a little bit curved. And we'll probably, play with it some more as we go along when we start to connect it. So I'm just going to quickly snip all of these. Excuse the noise in the background. That's my husband and my grandson. He likes to watch his papa work. So now when I get to this part right here on the toe, I just snip that little point off. It just makes adding or getting that point a little bit easier when you ease in that wholeness. So we're just going to finish this up real quickly. And like I said, I scored along this line just free-handed, and this would be hard to do on a scoreboard, so I just kind of did this freehand. So, excuse me, could you be quiet, please? Thank you. I don't want to have to compete. Okay, so you can see what I'm doing. I'm just folding back those little tabs that we created along the shoe line, and then the next step is going to be to do what we did with the back part of the shoe and just adhere these little tabs to the bottom of the heel, or the bottom of the shoe, I'm sorry. So okay, so there we have it. We have our little tabs. Now this is a little bit more tricky because you're going to have to glue one side at a time. As you can see, this is much wider than the base of the shoe, and I did that intentionally so that it, again, would give that fullness. So what I did was to just start with one side and glue that, trying to keep that toe in place. So you gotta cut it out? Yeah. You have to go like this, go around, over, side to side. You just want to, this is where you really want to make sure that this first side is stuck down really well, because you do have to kind of finesse this on the other side. And as you can see at the top here, It is a little bit long, so we're probably going to have to do some trimming there. Again, I left it longer just because we can play with it and add that fullness or take it away, whichever we want. Now, when you get to this point, you can see that there's quite a separation. So all I'm doing is pushing this in as I glue. So just do a couple of pieces at a time. And again, this gets a little bit more finicky, but it is well worth the effort when you're done. And I can see right here, I need to snip this a little bit. Oops. And we're just going to fold those out of the way for the time being. We'll work on that next. That's all part of easing it together. So there you have the first side of the heel, or the top of the shoe done. Now this side, you kind of have to kind of push and glue at the same time. Putting your hand inside the shoe just to hold it down. And you'll see why I'm doing it this way in just a second once we get this all glued down. And again, this will all be covered. You won't see any of this when we're done. Like this, I just want to make sure where I need to. Okay, that one's clipped good. Oops. And it came loose. And this is again where it gets a little fidgety because you kind of have to maneuver that fullness into the shoe. Add a little bit more glue here. And just hold it for a second. Now I did, when I was doing this, have to go back after I got this all attached and just kind of touch up areas where the little tabs came loose. I'm just sticking my hand inside and holding. Like that. As you can see, it's starting to form that curve on the top of the shoe. Okay. Let me go back and add a little bit more glue to these tabs. And I have to do the toe part down here too. See, you can see this is really yucky and messy on the bottom, and this is why I hesitated to do a video when I was doing the first one, because I thought, that looks awful. But once you get all of it glued down and covered, you don't have to worry about it. So what I'm going to do is what I did on the last one, because this was a little difficult. I just cut that part off on the toe so you don't see it. Okay, so there we have the top of the shoe on. Now, this is where you want to kind of play with it a little bit, because you're going to want that heel part to go in there. Okay? And that's why I left all of this unglued. So you want to make sure that when you do this, you have your heel set up. So what I'm going to do is to clip right here. I'm going to clip this away because that is inhibiting the heel from moving. So what I'm going to do is just kind of gradually curve that up like that. And I'm going to do the same thing on this side. Clip it right where that heel is going to go and just kind of curve it Again, any rough edges, you're not going to see them. So we're not going to be overly concerned. And as you can see, the tongue is way too long, so we're going to have to adjust that as well. So I'm just going to, on here where I cut that loose, I'm going to reapply some glue. Like that. And the same thing over here. Keeping that heel bent back as I do it, just so that we don't lose that shape. Okay, so now what we're going to do is cut this down a little bit because obviously it's way too long. So I'm just going to take my scissors and just kind of gradually trim away where I think I want it to go. And we'll probably trim this a couple of times. And continue to shape this as we go, just to give it that rounded effect. Okay, so as you can see, we have that. Now, we will be attaching fabric along here, and I also attached another little, just a piece of the chipboard on here as I was doing it, just to hold these two pieces together once we get it shaped the way that we want it. So the next part is to attach your heel. And this again is a little bit easier than you would think it would be. So what I'm going to do before I do anything else is I'm going to cover this piece with the satin. When I did my first one, I was struggling trying to get this on here. So I thought, well, let's try it this way. So I don't know if this is going to work, but we're going to try it. So instead of using the hot glue, I'm going to use a little bit of fabric tack on this. And we're just going to wrap this like a package. Just adding some glue along here. And because I scored this previously, you'll be able to bend this still, even with the fabric on it. So I'm just kind of gluing this down. And you don't have to worry, again, about the inside of this because you're not going to see it. I've cut a piece of felt that I used on the bottom of the other shoe, which covers all of this yuckiness on the bottom. So we're just going to do that. And then, ouch, real hot. You just kind of want to pull and stretch and glue down the other side. That. And as you get to each section, just kind of stretch it so that you don't have any wrinkles when you're on the front side. On the back, it doesn't matter again because you're not going to see it. I really honestly believe that that's why trims and embellishments and all of those things were created, because when we're working on a project like this, you really just want to hide all that yuckiness. So it's also great if you make a boo-boo, which I do quite often, and you'll probably see a couple of those in here. But that's okay because we just fix it and move on. Let's see, I've got a little wrinkle right there, so I'm just going to pull it. And right here, I'm just going to fold it over like a package because, again, you're not going to see it. The other end I didn't worry about because that's going to go on the inside of the heel. So just kind of tuck it and glue it. So as you can see on the outside, it's all nice and smooth. So what we're going to do now is just bend this right along those score lines like this. And this piece right here will fold in like that so you have the nice finished piece on the outside. Now for this I am going to use the hot glue gun and just put a dab of glue all the way around it like that. And just line up those edges and just hold it. So as you can see on the outside you've got a nice finished piece. And this is so much easier. I wish I'd have thought of this when I was doing my first one. I was cutting and trimming and doing a lot of unnecessary steps. So I guess it was good that I tried it first before I tried to do a video because, oh, it was a hot mess when I was working on it. So before I attach the heel, I want to cover this part of the heel. And I did cut a piece of fabric, just using the template for the back of the shoe, and I just kind of, you know, just roughly cut it because we're going to be trimming it and tucking it. So you don't have to worry about doing anything on the bottom because we're going to just tuck that under on the bottom of here. So let's start. Make sure I've got the right sides. I like to start in the center, and again I'm going to use the fabric tack because I just think it gives it a smoother look. And I'm going to glue all the way around the outside before I worry about tucking. So, and I'm going to kind of try to place that right in the middle and just kind of smooth it out. If you have bumps, again, you're not going to see it. This is just to cover the chipboard. And I'm just going to continue to glue along here. I love Fabri-Tac. It is super tacky, and it holds like the hot glue does. It's also about as sticky as the hot glue, and it does leave strings. I'll tell you, it does leave strings. So you just kind of have to be, not as many as a hot glue gun, but it still does get messy. And a trick that I've found when I'm working with this, especially if you have, you know, like acrylic nails, because everything tends to stick to those, is I have a rag with alcohol. I put alcohol on it, and I use that to periodically clean off my fingers. So I'm going to snip this excess off right here. And again, when you're covering this with all of your embellishments, you're not going to see this unfinished business because we're going to be covering it with lots of goodies. And once you get this part done, the rest is just the fun stuff. So again, I am going to clip here just along the edges on the top and the bottom of that back of the shoe. And then I will use the hot glue gun on this again because you won't see it when it's all done. So I try to use the Fabri-Tac on the smoother surfaces and the hot glue where you won't really see it. And I'm just doing the same thing I did with the chipboard, just gluing and, you know, tucking in the fullness as we go. Because like I said, I have a felt piece that I've cut out, and I just cut the felt the same size as the bottom of the shoe. And I did the same thing with another piece of satin. Cut another piece out of the pattern of the shoe, and that's going to go on the inside, so we don't see any unfinished areas. So I'm just going to quickly glue this down, and then we're going to do the same thing on the top. And again, I'm going to be covering the inside as well, so once you adhere this, you're not going to see it. And I try not to go all the way to the edge of the that stuff, you know, chipboard, just because you could leave a piece of the chipboard showing. My tongue is on strike today, I think. I just hope my brain doesn't join it. Okay, so I'm just going to do this really quickly. Doing the same thing, I start where it has the most fullness and just kind of tuck and glue, just like that. And just kind of easing all of that fullness in as we go. And on the other side. So there you have the back of your shoe. And again, this little area, even if you have some little less than perfect curves, we're going to be adding trim to cover all of that so you won't see it. So now I have cut a piece of fabric loosely the shape of the top of the shoe, and I just cut it in a square, or a rectangle, I guess you would call it. And how I did this part was to use the fabric tack, and I got this part all secured before I did anything else. So that's what we're going to do, is just cover this part of the shoe right up to where it starts to curve. And as you can see, it's still flopping, but don't worry about that because we're going to get to that part. And this is where you're going to need your damp rag to get that glue off your fingers because it's super sticky. I tried using a brush to smooth this out, and that was not a good idea, just to let you know. The brush did leave a lot of streak marks, and even some of the hairs of the brush came out, so not a good idea. So I'm just cleaning up my fingers before I start to work on the fabric, just to try and keep it as clean as possible. And the alcohol, it takes a little bit of rubbing, but it does take that sticky right off. So I always keep a big bottle of alcohol and a rag when I'm doing this. So now we're just going to take our fabric and move that out of the way. Just kind of lay it down very gently and just start smoothing from the middle and smoothing it all the way down around the bottom of the boot. We'll be cutting and trimming this, but this is just the easiest way that I found to do it. Again, I'm going to take my scissors and I'm just going to trim this up, just leaving enough along the edges so that we can do the same thing. We're just going to tuck it and glue it. And I'm leaving the top uncut for now. So, again, just making little slits all along here to ease in the fullness. Now we're going to use the hot glue gun again and just tuck and glue this down. And I'm kind of pulling and stretching at the same time just to make sure that it's as smooth as possible on the front or the top. I'm just kind of tucking and curving. I kind of like to work back and forth between the sides just to make sure that it's staying smooth on the top, rather than do one side and do the other and discover that you don't have enough room on the other side, which I've done. Pulled it too tight on one side and it's too short on the other. So now I try to work back and forth between the two sides just to make sure that I've got enough on both sides. That's how we learn. We make mistakes and we fix it. You do kind of have to play with the toe just a little bit. Again, if the toe is not perfect, it's okay. There's nothing perfect about this. It's just you get it covered and then you clean it up when you add your embellishments. So I'm just kind of tucking and rolling that tip and holding it. So you can see it gives a nice smooth finish when you're done. Now we're going to cut along here. Along that, I'm going to call it the tongue or the top of the slipper, shoe, whatever you want to call it. I had several people, and I myself thought when I was working on this first one, this looks like a Cinderella slipper. So it can be whatever you want it to be. So now we're going to do the same thing, just to ease in that fullness. We're just going to nip. And most of this is nipping, gluing, and, you know, tucking, just to get that smooth finish. And I'm leaving the shoe basically flapping around in the breeze right now until I get all of this done. It's just easier to maneuver it, which I will let you in on a secret I did not do in my first one, and oh my word, took forever, but I got her done. So I tried to find a way that might be a little bit easier to do this than the way I did it, because it took me a while. This is still going to take a while, but not quite as long as the way I did it on the first one. So now we're going to work on joining the two sides, or joining the sides of the slipper. So there you have these two sides. They're all joined. So now what I want to do is, before I join the sides, I want to attach my heel. Clean up some of this mess I have. I'm a messy crafter. I really am. But I just get caught up in the moment. So now I'm going to, like I said, I'm going to attach the heel. And I just made this square. I couldn't figure out how to do a high heel. So if you guys have any suggestions on how to do that, oh, please let me know, because I think this would be really cool as a high heel. So what I'm going to do is just kind of center this. It's back from the edge just a little bit, like right there. And I just hold it and take my hot glue gun and just put a generous amount inside here. Again, you won't see this when I'm done, because it's all going to be covered. And then you just want to hold that for a couple of minutes, because I put quite a bit of, I don't know if you can see that, but I put quite a bit of hot glue in there because I don't want this to come off. And as you can see, this is all going to be covered with trim too. So you won't see any rough edges or unfinished edges. Oops. When we're done, after we put all of our goodies on there. So I'm just going to hold that for just a minute so that it adheres nice and strong. And I use, like I said, I use quite a bit of glue, so it might take a second for it to dry up. Excuse me while I take a drink. My voice is getting froggy. And I've gathered a whole bunch of yumminess that Creating with Details carries to adorn our slipper with. And I'm not sure what we're going to end up using, but I just got a bunch out so that we have choices to work with. Okay, so now you can see when you have your heel on, this is where you want to attach your shoe to the side. Okay, so I'm just going to take some glue right here and just kind of push that up and squeeze it. And I will be adding another piece of chipboard on the side just to make sure that this adheres really well. And I'll just cut a piece of the satin to cover it, because again, once this is done, you're not going to see that seam. Okay, so I'm going to do the same thing over here. Just put a dab of glue in there. And this is not to hold it as, you know, completely secure. This is just simply to tack it while I get the other pieces of the chipboard in place. That one didn't pull very well, so we'll do it again. So as you can see now, you've kind of got your shoe put together. And like I said, don't worry about this mess here because we're going to cover that up. Okay, so now I'm going to take just another piece of the chipboard and I'm just going to cut two small pieces to add to the side to secure it. And then we'll cover that with a piece of satin. So what I'm doing is just gluing it right here. And the nice thing about using the chipboard to do this is it is, you know, kind of flexible so that you can shape it around your shoe like that. And this will help ensure that these two pieces are adhered really well. Yeah. We're going to do the same thing on the other side. Just adhere right over that seam with a piece of the chipboard. And then we're going to cover that with a piece of satin. And that is going to be all there is to building the shoe part. The next part is the fun part. And I'm sorry, ladies, if this is really long, but I don't know how to do it any quicker than this because Like I said, this has just been a kind of trial and error, finding an inspiration pattern and kind of adapting it to what I wanted to do with it. So it's an imperfect project, but it's still fun, and it comes out just fine, even though we have all these little patches that we have to put in here. You don't see it when it's finished. So there you have your shoe. Okay, so now I'm just going to take a piece of the satin and just cover up those pieces of chipboard that we just added. And I know you're thinking, this woman's crazy. That's going to look like doo-doo when she's done, but it doesn't. You won't see it. I promise. Make sure I have the right side. And then I'm just going to use a little bit of hot glue just to glue it down. Oh, excuse me. Like that. Pardon me. All we're really trying to do is just get rid of the chipboard, that brown look. So you can see it's not perfect, but it doesn't have to be because we're covering it next with all of this yumminess that we have. And I'm not sure at this point. Ooh, see all the glue strings? Wow. Like I said, I'm not sure what we're going to be using, but we'll figure it out because we're just going to play. And before we start playing, there are two more things that I want to do. Just to, again, cover up all of the unfinished business. Now, as I said, I did cut a piece of satin to put inside the shoe. Okay. You may find that you have to, I am going to try on this one to lift that tongue up just a little bit. Might not work, but we're going to try it. And it is, as you can see, boo-boo. It's a little uneven right here, but not to worry. We're going to cover it up. Not worth ripping it apart and starting over again. So what I've done is just cut this in the shape of the sole of the shoe. And I'm just going to tuck it down in there like that. And then you may have to play with this a little bit to make sure that it fits all right. But what I'm going to do is just tack it right here at the heel, because you're not going to see the rest of it once your shoe is all done. So I just tacked it right inside there with just a little bit of hot glue, and then just kind of push the rest of it down inside the shoe like that. I'm still working on playing with bending this up a little bit. Okay. Now I want to cover this part and this part, but we'll do that last. Right now I want to take my felt piece right here that I've also cut in the shape of the sole, and I want to glue that right on here, like so, just to cover up all of that yuckiness. So again, hot glue. And I don't worry about the center, I just get the edges and just kind of place that along there, and see how that finishes up all that yuckiness? And this is where you're probably going, I had to cut a separate piece of the felt for here because this is round and the heel is square. So what I did is just covered all this up with hot glue like that. Ouch. And then I cut this off down here. That. So as you can see, that covers up a lot of that yuckiness. And we're still going to add a trim around here. Okay, that's really bugging me. I'm almost tempted to, I think I will. I'm going to try and release some of this and shape that a little bit better because I don't like the way it looks. I know what I'll do. I will just do it this way, even though we've covered it. Again, we can adjust this because all of that is going to be hidden. And this is what you call trial and error. If at first you don't succeed, try again. So that looks a little bit better. See, it's a little more even, I think. Yeah, I like that better. So we get another piece of satin because I wanted to cover the inside of this as well so you don't see it. So let me just grab that real quick. And again, you're not going to see this because as you can see on here, I've added a lot of yumminess to the tongue right here. So we're just going to, I'm going to cut a piece for, so sorry about that. Cut a piece for inside here around the heel or the back of the shoe, and just roughly cut, even these up a little bit. As you can see, I'm just taking the fabric and kind of just loosely cutting the shape of the tongue. Like that. Oops. And I will cut off part of this because it's way too long. Here we go. So what I want to do is make sure that I have enough to cover any of the parts that are going to show. Like that. And I will be nipping and tucking. So what I'm going to do is just cut this right along here. Just cut some of that fullness off. And I'm going to start on the inside, just kind of tucking and gluing. So what I'm going to do is add some hot glue just really loosely inside. And starting with the fullest part, just tuck and glue. Like that. See, it'll cover up the inside of that nicely. Same thing over here. And all of the excess, don't worry, we'll get rid of it and we'll cover it. Crude and elementary, but you know what? It works. So now that we have that secured, and you really won't see where that's glued down in there. So now what I'm going to do is just roughly, again, just cut this around the shape of the tongue. All we want to do is really cover that edge where I cut it off. And if you are a little more careful than I was in doing this, you won't have to go through this step. But if you do, you know how to fix it. Okay, gotta get rid of that red. It's driving me nuts. So now we're just going to, again, just glue and tuck. And I know we spend all that time making that smooth and pretty, and here you go, yucking it up. But like I said, don't worry, you won't see it. Sometimes these are things we have to do when we're trying out something new. Okay, so we have that covered. Now I just want to take this piece right here, and I'm just going to, I'll be right back. I'm going to press this out really quickly because I want a finished edge along the top of that heel. So, again, what we're going to do is start in the center, and I'm just going to, I fold it over a little bit like right here, and I'm just going to start to hot glue that right in the center. So when it's done, you'll have that finished edge along there. I'm just going to continue to do that fold and glue. Just giving that finished edge along the top of the back of the shoe. Now I did a boo-boo. Again, another one. I'm just going to trim off some of these that are sticking up. Don't need those. I glued down the inside of the heel before I did this part, so I'm going to have to lift that up to cover all of these little slits that I put in here. Yeah, actually when you're doing a video, it's kind of cool to mess up, because then if somebody's doing your project and they make a boo-boo, you know, you can give them some ideas on how to overcome the boo-boo without ripping it off and starting over again. Because who wants to do that, especially with something that's kind of involved like this is. So I'm just pulling up the inside of the shoe where I tacked it down so I can hide these edges here. And I'm not gonna trim them, I'm just going to tack them down just kind of real loosely, just so that we don't have some, you know, all that puffiness in there. And once you glue that heel back down, you won't see any of that. So I'm just kind of really loosely going around the edges and just easing out any of that fullness in the back of the shoe. So I'm just going to kind of glue down some of these pieces that are sticking up there. Now we're going to glue the heel back in. A little bit of yuckiness on there. Oops. So ladies, you're getting to see this in, you know, full cinematic color with bloopers and all. Now I'm just gluing the heel part in here to cover all of that. And I'll show you, even though you're going through all of this, you still have areas that, you know, are not quite as finished as you may want them. So again, I'm just going to tuck this down, and I'll show you what I did in the other shoe to kind of hide all of that. On the inside here, you can see where these seams come together. I just glued a just a small piece of trim on the inside, just to hide that, finish that seam off a little bit. So that's what we're going to do on this too. Okay, so now we have that done. What we're going to do, oh, I forgot to cut a piece of felt. Where did I put my felt? To cover up the heel. Here we go. And again, I just took the hot glue and went right along the edges. Like that. And I just took the felt and glued it down there. And then after it dries, you can just trim it off, and that way all of your yuckiness is hidden. So I'm just going to trim this off. That. Oh boy, after this project, I'm really going to have to clean my scissors, because they got tons of glue on them after these two projects. So you can see I have a piece over here that I am not happy with. So I'm going to cut another little strip. It's like I said, I kind of did this one differently than I did the last one, so I had to make adjustments from what I did before. Some areas turned out great, some others not so great, like that. I needed to cut that heel piece a little bit wider on the felt. And Do the same thing on the other side. Whoops. Okay, and we'll figure out a way to make that look good too. Guarantee it. Okay, now that we're done with all that fussy bit, let's decorate and make this look yummy, I hope. Okay, since this top part is really bugging me, I want to do that first. Get rid of some of these glue strings all over the place. Okay, so the way that I did the top part of the other shoe is this gorgeous lace that Creating with Details carries. And what I did to make kind of that fan effect is I cut these medallions. As you can see, there's a flower in the center. And what I did is I just cut around that flower so that I could use all the little leaves, at least I think they're leaves, to cover the top of that shoe. And of course, you save this flower because it's gorgeous. And then just cut all these little pieces off. And then I also cut these little flowers apart because I use these as fillers in the areas where you might have a little spot that just needs a little something something. So I cut those apart and use them just to kind of fill in the blanks a little bit. And I'll show you what I mean. On excuse me, the shoe right here, where I put the appliques, there was a little spot that showed. Oops. And I just used one of those little florets right here just to kind of blend it all smoothly. So, and these are the pieces that I adhered to the top of the tongue. So what I did is just start gluing. I started in the center and kind of worked my way out. And I may have some more pieces here. I do. That I already cut up from the other project. But all I'm doing is using these leaf pieces along the top. And just adding them here and there. And I need another glue stick. I'm just adding a dab of hot glue to the end of my new stick, which is trying to run away from me before I stick it in, and that helps it attach when I start feeding the glue through, which I just got all over my desk, and I'll get it off later. Okay, so we have flowers there. Here's another piece. And it's really hard to tell on these pieces which is the right side and which is the wrong side, but I just kind of guess. And then where you have these two loose pieces right here, you're just going to kind of take a dab of glue and glue it down. And I have one more piece here. Right kind of, oops, yeah, I had it on the wrong side. And I'm going to glue right there. And this kind of gives it that fan shape. And I need one more piece for this side. So we'll just cut another one up. Just like that. And we're going to glue that on there. Now, we're going to work on covering all of this unfinished yuckiness. See how that gives it that fan appearance? So the next thing we're going to do is I've pulled out a number of, I have this that I used on the other shoe, which I cut off a wedding gown. I have this gorgeous piece, this applique that Creating with Details carries. And I absolutely love this. So I think this may be our choice, but what we're going to do is play with this and see just where we want this to fall. Oh yeah, look how pretty. Let me get it back in place here. Look how pretty that is. And then we have another piece that's going to go right here, which will further hide that. So let's see where I want to cut this. I think right here, I'm going to cut this part off. And not to fear, we will be using this elsewhere. Like that, yeah. So let me make sure that I can mirror this on the other side. It'd be just like me to cut this row. Whoops. I still have a piece attached. Okay, so now what we're going to do is attach this piece, just like this. And I'm going to kind of try to curve this around the sides a little bit. Like that. So that's going to be the decoration on the shoe. I'm getting ahead of myself. But that just shows you what your options are for covering the shoe. You could use a bridal lace, which I did on the other one. And that's what I put right here on this one. Or you can use some of the gorgeous appliques that May has. This one I was saving for a special project, and this seems about as good as any other. So before I do that, though, I want to cover this part of the shoe up, and I use this braided cord that Creating with Details also carries. And I'm just going to start right here along the edge of the shoe. And as you can see, it bends so that you can go right around the edge of your shoe here and cover both a little bit of the top and a little bit of the bottom. Just like that. And when you do that, it kind of covers up your, or not your, my boo-boos. a little bit on the bottom. My glue stick didn't stick that time. So we're just going to go all the way around. Ouch, glue hot. Geez, that was really hot. Just like that. And if need be, we'll go back and just kind of tack these down a little bit. And you just kind of want to keep your the center of your gimp right on that seam line where the two pieces are joined together. And I am going to continue this all the way around the back of the shoe like that, just because there's a lot of yuckiness I want to hide. Again, this is what embellishments were made for. Not only that, but they just make them look gorgeous. And as you can see, you got a little tiny lip right there. But if you add this gimp to it, it kind of hides that as well. It gives it that finished look. So I'm just kind of tucking it around there. And then we're going to bring it all the way down to the other side where we started. Jeez, that glue is hot. I think I got a second-degree burn. Now, when you're using this gimp, you do want to make sure that when you're done cutting it, you wrap a piece of like Scotch tape or something like that around it, because the way this is made, see, it will fray. So you want to make sure, I'm not going to do that right now, but just a little tip when you're working with it. Otherwise, unfortunately, I made the mistake of not doing that when I first started working with this, and it all unraveled. Well, not all of it, but way too much of it unraveled. Let's put it that way. So I'm just overlapping it a little bit. And the reason that I do that is to make sure that where I've cut it, my ends are secure. See, so now we have the edge of our slipper shoe, whatever you want to call it, covered. Now we will put on our applique. And I just want to start at the toe. Let me see if I can turn this around so you guys can see it better. I'm going to start with this piece right here on the toe and just kind of gradually add this as we go, just to keep it all centered. See, that goes right in the tip of the shoe. And from there, I want to move up to this top piece and just add a dab of glue and glue that down. So we kind of keep it lined up as we're working. Now we can just go back and add little bits of, little dabs of glue to these pieces right here, just to, I'm not using a lot because you don't want it to show. Just kind of glue that down as we work our way up. And this is, there's a lot of fullness here. So I think what I want to do is try to, if you can see, I want to bring that fullness into the side of the shoe. And that helps to hide some of that mess that we created. I keep saying we. You had nothing to do with that. That was all me. Just hide that a little bit. Plus it gives it that extra little something something. So that's what I'm doing right here, is just gluing down just lightly these pieces along the edge, so you can see how nicely that works. And I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. I use the same principle. When I'm gluing pieces, I just keep working back and forth from side to side so that I know that I have the same fullness on both sides. I've got to glue that down a little bit better. Okay, so here we have some fullness that we need to work into it. So I think what I'm going to do is just, I'm going to cut off this piece right here, this little curly Q. So we don't really need that. Whoops. See, that little curly Q right there is all I cut off. So now we're just going to glue these down. And this is when you're playing with appliques and decorations. This is where you just kind of get to play and see how pretty. You just kind of get to play and you know, figure out where you like it, the placement, the little curly cues and that kind of thing. Oops, I forgot to cut off that other one. Okay.
I'm gonna lay down. I don't feel good.
So we're just going to add this here. See, that's what we have so far. So all of these pieces that I've cut off of here, I will save and use on other projects because they are gorgeous, gorgeous pieces. So we have that part done. Now what I want to do is work on this yucky area right here. And you can see on this one, I used a piece of the rhinestone applique that May has. Now I only had one of these, so I have to do something a little bit different on this one. So I have a couple of choices that I pulled out. And again, these are also carried in the store, if I can pick it up. This is a little dangle that you can add a ribbon or something to. You could make this into a choker or a bracelet. But I was thinking of maybe adding that right here to give it that little extra bling. Or, let's see, we have also, these are brand new. Just came into the store not that long ago. And these things are, I mean, you could wear these just as they are. They would be absolutely stunning. But, you know, as crafters, we like to tear things apart. Look at that. Just look at the shine and the glimmer on that. I know I'm not going to use this piece, I don't think. Maybe. Let's just see what it does. I have to untie it from the back. This might be a little bit too much for the size of the shoe, but we'll see once we get it out of here. I just wanted to show you what it is before I started doing anything with this, what this looks like when it comes out of the package. And it's the necklace and the earrings to match. And it comes on this chain so that you can wear it as a necklace already. So this is what I wanted to see. right here. Oh my, that's gorgeous. That is gorgeous. But I have another piece that I want to add. This is our Marie Antoinette piece that I want to add right here on the shoe. Pardon me. So that might be just a little bit too big because I do not want to cut this. So we may have to go with plan B or C. I have another piece that I also pulled out. And I don't know where I put it. Well, I do have this one. Here it is. This is another absolutely, I have got fumble fingers today. Gorgeous piece, as you can see. And a gorgeous bracelet that we could put right here. And that would kind of look like a buckle almost on the side. And then let's see what our piece looks like here with it. What I had originally pulled this out for was to put along the back of the shoe. Like that. Just to give it that little extra bling. But I think out of my choices, I really like this one on here the best. See, just like that. Yes, sorry about my forehead there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to snip off these little pieces right here with my wire snippers. Oh, I may have to get the bigger ones out. That's some tough metal. There we go. Okay, so that's done. Now what I did on the other shoe as well, a little crooked, is I took one of these florets that I cut apart from that gorgeous trim, and I glued that right on here. See? Voila. All of the messiness gone. So I'm just going to really quickly, loosely add this right to the center. Now we can play with where we're going to put our bling piece. Oops. I think what I'm going to do is cut off these extra pieces right here. Again, get out my snippers. And don't throw these pieces away either, because you just never know where those are going to come in handy. I just wanted to shorten this just a wee bit. Here we go. So now we have the piece that looks like just the three little doodads. So I'm going to put that right here in the center of the shoe, or the flower, just like that. And while I'm holding that, I'm just going to add some glue. And I did angle up the sides just a little bit on this, just to give it that shape right there. So I'm going to pick these up and save those. Now, on the side here, we're going to be adding some feathers to this as well. So that's the next thing I want to do, is use put some of the feathers down before I add the Marie image. And this digital is from Angela Holt Designs. Probably can't see that very well. Here we go. And all I did was print this off, and I printed this off on muslin. It just kind of gave her that softer effect, but you could also print this off on linen, and the image would probably be crisper. And then I took some of the rhinestone trim, and ladies, this is all I have left of a yard, that little tiny piece, and just went around, did a couple of rows of that trim just to give it like a bling frame. And I did the same thing on this one, as you can see right here. I just did 2 rows of it around there. So, but before I glue that, that's going to go right here like that. I want to attach some of the flowers, feathers. And what I used for that is, this is oh my god, marabou feathers. Look at that. I love these. And I just simply, as you can see, it comes on this piece of fabric so that they're all sewed together. And I just took little pieces, like right here, and I just cut that right apart. I'm going to lift that up. See? Just like that. So I'm going to glue that right here. Ouch. And then that's what I just did kind of all the way around here. Oops. So see, this one is a little bit longer, so I don't want to cover up all of that. So I think what I'm going to do is just snip one of these longer feathers out of the center like that, and just adhere that like that. And then this longer one kind of fans out a little bit. Just going to do that. And you're going to have feathers coming off while you're doing this, but that's okay. Nothing wrong with wearing feathers like that. And I think I want to add a couple more pieces right here so it gives that fan shape. Okay. And as you can see, when you're cutting it, you do still have this little extra piece of fabric that they sew it together with, so that, ouch. I'm just going to cut this longer feather off here. You don't want it to be too overwhelming. Like that. And just kind of fan it out. Now, we can put our Marie image right on, whoop, I'm starting to lose my shoe, right on top of those feathers. So we're going to place it just like this, and I'm going to turn this around so I can see it from my angle to glue it on, because I want to get it straight. Just like that. I thought this kind of looked like a tiara right here. But I want to finish this off a little bit. So these little flowers that I told you that when I cut them off, I saved. And I did, when I was doing this other one, I did add a couple of these little curlicue feathers. I think I'm going to do that on this one too. I cut these apart from something else that I had, and I thought that they just looked regal. So I'm going to put those right there. Oops, I got 2 feathers there. I did. Can't be wasting feathers. So again, I'm just going to tuck that right there and just kind of have it come up like around the shoe like that. So there we have that part. And I want to add a little something something right here too. So I think what I might do is take a couple of these little florets that we cut apart from that trim and just kind of add them here and there like I did on the other piece, and find the right and the wrong side. I'm just going to add these like right on the edge of this, just like that. Don't want to cover up the bling, but just to give it a little more finished effect. Just like that. And I think I want something right here too. I have a crown, but I don't want to see the bottom of it. So let's see, what else do we have? I know I used I do have some other pieces of bling that we could use right here, but I think that might be too much. Yeah, that's too much. So this is what I did on the other one, just kind of, I had it down here, but same principle. With these little acrylic flowers that also is creative, or at Creating with Details, and I just added, oops, a little flat back pearl, which again, you can get an entire box of these flat back pearls from the teeniest on up to bigger. Excuse me. Excuse me again. $6.99 at Creating with Details. These are a phenomenal deal, ladies. And I mean, when I say tiny, I mean just minuscule. So I'm going to take one of those, and I have one right here. And I'm going to put some glue in the center of it. And just adhere that flat back pearl right in the center. And then I'm going to attach that right there. I'm just going to hold on to that for a second. Mercy, mercy, I have a mess. Whoops. Don't try to do two things at once, Robin. You get messed up. So you can see that is the front of our shoe. And the only thing I have left to do, let me take this out of here because, sorry about that, ladies. For some reason, my video quit working. So we're going to have to add this together. So I had this in the other side of in the other shoe in here just because it just kind of looked unfinished. So I'm going to steal that from the other shoe, and I'm just going to tuck that right inside there like that. You can play with that and just kind of hide all those dark edges. But the other thing I want to do is finish up the bottom of the heel. And for that, I just use some of these little string pearls that Creating with Details also carries. And I'm trying to hurry this up, ladies, because I know it's been long. But I just want to give you a basic idea. I just used hot glue and went all along the edge of the heel, just like that. And along the bottom of it as well. Just to give it that finished look. Okay, there we have that. Now, I told you we were going to cover up that little yuckiness right there, and that's what we're going to do right now. We are going to take, I have these really pretty leaves that are also from Creating with Details, and while they are a little bit different in color, I'm not as concerned about that, just because I think they add to the look of the shoe. So what I'm going to do is just take this and add it right here, just to give it that little finish look. I'm going to cut off the stem just a wee bit and lift up those flowers and just adhere the leaf right to the shoe like that. And there we have that little piece that that I added. I keep blaming you guys for what I did. I'm sorry about that. I have another piece right here that I'm going to do on the other side. I got that going the right way? Yes, I do. So now we have all of that hidden. And I think I am going to take these feathers possibly. No, I'm not going to do that. But I do have another area right here. Oops, you can't see that. That I want to add a flower to. One of these other little ones that we cut apart. Here's one. And this is what I did on the other one. I just kind of randomly added little bits and pieces to cover up anything that I wasn't really crazy about. Oops, I almost put that on upside down. See? All hidden. They have feathers stuck everywhere. I'm going to have to get out the leaf blower. Put another one on the other side. These are all half pieces of flour. Well, it'll work. And they don't have to be like identical twins when you're doing this either. You can have them be sisters. I heard that on a video somewhere, and I'm not even sure where I heard it from, but I just thought that was really cool, you know, because we tend to want to be perfect and have everything match. And, you know, when we try to do that, we drive ourselves totally insane. And I'm already halfway there, so I'm just going to go with it. And if it's not exactly matchy-matchy, that's okay. So there we have that. And we have a ton of glue strings. And we have the pearls glued to the bottom of the heel and the bottom of this. And as you can see, it covered up everything pretty nicely. Here's a little spot that I'll probably go back over and put another little piece in. The only thing left is the back of the heel right here. And I have some other pieces. Let's see those pieces that I cut off. What did I do with those? Let's see if we can use one of those. Nope, that's not it. What on earth did I do with it? Oh, no. Let's see if we can't use one of these on the back. No, I'm not liking that. But what else do we have? Other little pieces that I have saved from other projects that I've worked on. Let's see. Oops. What did I do with that piece that I said I wanted to go onto the heel? Let's see what that looks like now. It's pretty, but I don't think I want to cover it up. So I did have that other brooch that I could add on here. It's kind of pretty. And they also have these gorgeous buttons that Freedom of Details also has. See how pretty. And I think, yeah, that's the ticket. I'm just going to cut off the shank because these do come with a shank on the back and glue that on. But before I do, I'm just going to take a couple more pieces of this trim that we used on the rest of the shoe and just add it to the back of the shoe like this. I know this is really long, ladies, and I'm sorry. I just didn't know how else to do it. But this is going to be, once I glue this stuff on, this will be the conclusion. And, you know, I hope you've enjoyed it. I know that that I made boo-boos. I hope that I showed you how to fix them and not to get stressed out about it. Although my stomach is churning, I'm not even going to lie. This always happens, you know, when you're on video. You see, so that I've added those two little pieces, and it's going to take an hour to clean up all these glue strings. So I'm going to add this button right to the center, just like that. just kind of hold that down while I clean off some of these glue strings and feathers. And we're going to call this a wrap, ladies. I hope that you have enjoyed this. I hope that I haven't bored you too much. I hope that you don't mind all the bloopers. And the other thing I was thinking when I was doing this shoe is, like with this flower, you could even put a bunch of flowers, you know, like a little mini bouquet or something like that in there, just to fill it out a little bit more, you know, put 2 or 3, like a spray of flowers. That would be really pretty too. So again, ladies, I hope that you've enjoyed this video. I'm sorry that it was so long. I hope you enjoyed even the bloopers, and stay tuned for pictures at the end. I will show you after I've got it all cleaned up and no more glue strings. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up, subscribe, and share. And until next time, ladies, have a wonderful, blessed day. Be kind to each other, and God bless. Bye-bye.